Directly involves student achievement. And Lisa Andrade is also here from the Mary Kay Good. Lisa, you're going to join us at the podium or at the table?
You ruined that for her.
Showing off her tan from April vacation.
But it rained.
Mr. Thompson is going to talk a little bit about the history of this program and the success of this program, and then he's going to invite some representatives from the Rotary down to have a conversation with us. And we welcome all the members of the Rotary who are here tonight, and wish you could all come down, but the table's a little bit small, so we can do pictures though. Mr. Thompson, thank you.
All right, good evening. Thank you for having me. So we've been here the last few years to talk about the success of the Rotary program. So we have a few members in the audience. I'm introduce them and ask a couple people to come down. But just so that the audience has an awareness, we have started, I think it was 4 years ago, an intensive after-school tutoring program that we have about 50 kids in both schools participating in math in both grades 4 and 5, and then in ELA in grade 4. And so what we did that was a little different when Matthew Bruce had approached us about wanting to start a Rotary program, we thought a little bit outside the box. We're trying to figure out ways to impact more kids. So what we did was create groups of 6 kids with every teacher. And we had parents sign up. They sign a contract, the kids sign a contract. And what's a little bit different is they come and they engage in a variety of things using Khan Academy, things like that, in math. But part of the agreement is that the kids also, with their parents at home for another hour a week, log on. The teachers all maintain a website, primarily through a website called Edmodo, where they'll post videos and work assignments and things like that. So it's really, for a lot of the kids, it's 2 to 3 hours a week. A lot of the interventions that are provided are targeted to the kids' individual needs. But one of the big things that they'll do, especially in math, is pre-teach concepts. So we have teachers in both buildings that are familiar with the curriculum, so they know what's coming up. So kids walk into class and are much more confident walking in class and are engaging in the work in ways that they hadn't previously. So we've generally targeted kids who have underperformed on MCAS, and then we had Park, and it was underperformed on MCAS, and we're doing MCAS again, so it keeps changing on us. But one of the numbers that we've targeted has been kids who have low growth. We've talked a lot about growth percentiles, and just a real simplistic explanation is it's like when you go to your doctor, or your kids go to the doctor, and they say, your kid's in the 40th percentile or the 60th. So typical is between 40 to 60. So most of the kids that we've targeted and worked with in the program have been below 20. So just real quick to share the success of last year's program, what we did was and we just presented this at the most recent Rotary meeting, was we looked at growth and just compared them to the performance of all the students in the building. So again, if you remember, the average being like 13, 14, 15 growth percentile, typical in the comparing it to what was typical in both buildings. So the average growth for the 4th grade students that participated in ELA was 47.52. To put that in context, the average growth for the students in both buildings was 43. So the kids that participated in the program outperformed the students in both buildings. In 4th grade math, the growth percentiles for the students that participated was 61.75, and the average growth of the students in 4th grade in both buildings was 51. So the kids, this was our biggest success. They outperformed the kids by 10 percentage points. And then they were right there with the 5th graders. So 5th grade Rotary Ray students were 52, and the students in both buildings average was 52. So just to put a little bit of numbers and put things into context, it's been an incredibly successful program. And so with that said, I'd like to invite Matthew Bruce and Paul Moran down to the podium with me. And I'd also like to recognize Mimi and Willie Dufilli and Sue Okalita, who are both from the Rotary, here to support the work that we've been doing. And we wouldn't be able to do this without their financial support. So
Thank you, Derek.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Brian, Superintendent Lynch. It's just a pleasure to be here, and our involvement with the school department has been really exactly what Rotary is all about. We've always tried to support the education of the kids in Middleborough and Lakeville, and Rotary Raise gives us a vehicle to do that. And Matthew, Bruce, and yourself have done such a great job with rolling this program out for the last 3 years, and hopefully we'll continue that. When we see the growth that these kids make, it really motivates us as a club. And almost every Rotarian, when you come in to give the presentation, that's one of our most popular meetings because everybody wants to see the results and see what's happened with these kids. And it's inspiring, and so we're just happy to be involved with it, and appreciate all your efforts, Derek, and the teachers who take part in the program. Certainly Superintendent Lynch, appreciate your support of the program. And Matt, do you want to say a few words?
Well, just to kind of second what you've already said, I mean, we're very excited to see the growth of the program. It's been a few years now, and to see it expand as it has, and we're hopeful to see it expand even further and to help the lives of a lot of the students that need this service. I think it's a very valuable service. When the program began, thinking of the need for tutoring and knowing and having experience with other private companies that do just that, and the benefits that the kids were receiving through private tutoring, but it was very costly, and it's not available to all students. So this is a program that can be, and we're really excited to be a part of it, and really excited to have Derek at the helm. You've really done a fantastic job in championing this program, and
Great job.
looking forward to many more years to come. Do more of the same. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This does not come without the hard work and dedication of the Rotary Club in the form of the auction and other items they do, other fundraisers they do within the year. So they actually brought a very enlarged check there, but it's representative of the money they've just recently donated to the school system, which is a big check. And if you look at it closely, it's $11,200. So we have an $11,200 donation from the Middleborough Rotary Club to support this program. We couldn't do without you. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for supporting the Middleborough Public Schools. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you could sit down for 1 second, because I do have a couple of questions for you. First of all, when you talk about the Rotary Raise, I also want the people in the community to know the other ways you invest in this community, especially the students. You guys give generously in scholarship money. And also, many of your members are members of the business community. And I know Mr. Brannigan's fortunate enough to, a lot of those businesses, we have kids intern from the high school in various times during the day. And so I wanted to give you a shot, because I imagine, like any other organization in town, you are always looking for help. And so if people wanted to become involved in the Rotary or help out in any way, how would they do that?
Well, it's a great question, and we're very fortunate to have a group of dedicated Rotarians, and as you mentioned, it takes a lot more than just the Rotary Club to make things happen, particularly the auction. We like to say we have friends of Rotary as well who help us with the auction, our spouses, our friends, people from the community. And you mentioned local businesses. Certainly the auction couldn't happen without the donations from local businesses. We're out there a month in advance of the auction getting gift certificates and donations from the local community. And typically, the donations tend to be, about $25,000 to $30,000 worth of donations to the auction, and that's what we auction off each year. So it couldn't happen without the generosity of the local businesses and the local business community. And as far as joining Rotary, it's a great organization. As you mentioned, we do the scholarships for the kids for both Middleborough and Lakeville. We've been doing that for years. We do a number of other charitable endeavors that we take part in. Things if various organizations need money, we've donated to international funds, but mostly our money stays local. And we're always looking for good Rotarians. We meet every Wednesday. You don't have to come every Wednesday. You can come every other week. But it's a great group of friends. You find yourself looking forward to Wednesday nights because it's like having dinner with a group of friends, and we end up doing a lot of good work. So, yeah, if anybody would like to join, they can go to middleboroughRotary.org, and that's our website, or they can go to Facebook and look us up on Facebook. we're on both the web and on Facebook, so.
Or they
yeah.
could reach out to Rotarian as well.
Yeah,
I'm glad to show them the
absolutely.
way.
We meet every Wednesday at the
Fireside.
Fireside at 6:15. Love to have somebody come in as guests. Anybody can come in and check out the meetings and see what we're all about.
Yeah, thank you for that
Yeah.
question.
Thank you.
Yes. Sure. Brian, get in the picture. Did you have a comment? Did you have a comment?
I do, but I can't speak, so I'm just gonna save it. How are you, Megan? Nice to see you. Good.
Next item on the agenda is reports from school committee members. Owen is out tonight, and we congratulate him. I believe he got confirmed this evening, and so we want to wish him well. And so it's reports from school committee members. Mr. Ness?
I have nothing to report this time.
I would like to say that coming up at the high school with the music program, there's a couple of events. There's a big rally coming up, I think a week from Friday. And then Saturday, the 6th, there is at 7 p.m. an event for autism awareness that they're raising money. So there's a couple of great things at the high school. There are things going on throughout the district. So I think there are just some amazing things coming up. Our calendars are getting full, and it's a beautiful thing this time of year because more and more things get on the calendar, but I just figured I'd mention a couple of items. Thank you.
Ms. Franco? Thank you. I do have a couple of things. I also think it's nice we had the Rotary here and to point out to the community that the Rotary lost a member last week in Jane Lopes, and Jane has been a wonderful member of our community and has served on several boards, but more importantly, has been somebody that we as a school committee have reached out to and has reached out to us in various times, and so we want to wish her family well at this time. I also want to announce something really fun and exciting is happening this Saturday night at 6:30 in Pawtucket. The Pawtucket Red Sox play the Atlanta Braves organization, and the starting pitcher from the Atlanta Braves organization will be Middleborough Sean Newcomb. So that's very exciting, and I know several of the kids who work here in the various departments have gotten press passes, and they'll be interviewing Sean for Middleborough Educational Television. And I also know that there's quite a contingent from Middleborough residents going out there, and so we want to wish Sean well. Yes.
We were talking about the Rotary and the donations the Rotary gives. Also in our packet, we also had some donations from Hannaford, some various donations. $276, $591, $400. I think it's wonderful. Hannaford is with their Hannaford Helps Schools program, donating back here to Middleborough is a wonderful piece, and I want to thank Hannaford for their donations. And then in the retirements, I know we get them at the end of I'd like to get them at the beginning if we could on this one. We have Lynn Sullivan and Edith Thompson retiring in our packet this week. So I wish them both the best and thank them for their many years of service.
And one item that you missed, Mr. Giovanni, that I feel important to mention is on Saturday, May 6th, the Middleborough Friends put on their annual breakfast, and that breakfast benefits the Council on Aging. So it's an opportunity for people to get out and get a wonderful breakfast. I believe that's from 8 to 11.
8 to 11, $6 for adults, $4 for children, or a family of 5 for $20. Pancakes, eggs, bacon, ham, sausage, juice, and coffee. So
All the money goes to the Council on Aging.
all the money goes to the COA, yes.
Next up on our agenda is Mr. Catino. Welcome, Frank. I enjoyed the tie.
That's one of my favorites. Darth Vader, you gotta like Darth Vader, I guess. Well, I actually don't have anything. Walking down here, my knees are a little sore, so that's the latest treatment makes my joints ache, so. But everything seems to be moving along pretty well. Actually, once the April school vacation goes by, it's like the end of the school year, it's like, boom, it's like right there, so. Anyway, I got a lot of seniors this year, 4 weeks and they're done. That's where we're at, that's crazy. Yes, it is, and I'm not teaching AP this year, so, I didn't, there are a lot of teachers that teach AP, that's for certain. There's actually quite nice that we've been able to expand the program up there, starting with that AP grant so many years ago that I helped to bring in, so that was very good. All right.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is superintendent's report.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Lynch.
Chair, members of the committee. This evening, we have the school choice discussion for next year. It's listed as number 4, and at the request of the chair, we're going to move that up to number 1. We had begun discussion last week with regard to the school choice issue. There's been some feeling, last year we went to the 6 through 12, and we had some discussion at last meeting with regard to possibly expanding that. And I guess tonight we're probably looking for a vote on how you'd like to move forward as a school committee with school choice.
For discussion.
I apologize if this is torturous for you all, but is it possible to, so I like the 6 to 12. I feel like that's been working for our district as far as the students we've been able to maintain within Middleborough when their families have gone through some changes. The question that I have is, are we able to open up availability for students to come to district or stay in district if their older siblings, grades 6 through 12, have opted through school choice to be in Middleborough? So not opening school choice up to the entirety of K to 5, but just for those families who might have a second, third, fourth sibling that does not meet the 6 to 12 criteria. Is that allowed? I know we have some examples of that now, so I'm just wondering.
We've also had to turn away siblings who asked to be a part of it.
Yeah, it just seems unfortunate to have a fractured family if they're making a choice to opt into our district.
So, if I may, correct me if I'm wrong. So what you're thinking is, if we have maybe a student who's in 7th grade and has a student sibling who's in 4th grade and would like to be in our district, that instead of just opening up K through 12, we open it such that we only allow the siblings from K through 5 of students 6 through 12? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, and subject to availability, you know, if our grades are crowded, and that would not work out well for current students, but I think subject to availability, I think it would be very appropriate to keep families intact, especially if they're opting in.
Kathy, do you know if we can do that?
We can certainly research it tomorrow.
Yeah, I know, for example, I know siblings get priority, but we can take a look at that. And so what maybe we do then is we approve the 6 to 12 tonight, and we can look at the availability of siblings, because we have a meeting next week. We have the availability to do siblings, to have that discussion for next week, if that's what people so want to do. Do you have, Mr. Lynch, do you have, I know, for example, we set a limit at 5 per grade last year initially, and then we decided that the 20 should really apply to the high school. It was 20 applied to the high school. I'm wondering if you sort of want to maintain those numbers or are looking to expand a little?
We didn't go beyond those numbers this year. However, more flexibility might be appreciated if we started to open up and people started looking down the road and saying, here's a school system that could possibly build a new high school and things such as that. People might start making decisions.
But correct me if I'm wrong, we were pretty close on the high school number.
We were very close.
We were close to the 20.
Very close. Yep.
At the high school, as long as it doesn't, if we can handle the numbers at the high school, then we should go beyond that, potentially. And like Ms. Franco was saying, I do think the same thing. I get worried that if we open up K through 5, do we all of a sudden have an onrush that we can't?
Right.
You know, I just don't want to all of a sudden have a situation where our K just comes in and we have 5 K classes come through and just swamp us. And I would really hate to do that.
You know, prior to my arrival, the school administration and the school committee have worked to get the class sizes down where they're very manageable at the elementary level, certainly. And we certainly appreciate that moving forward. We don't want to get into a situation where we are, by virtue of school choice, overcrowding these classrooms. So Ms. Franco's comment on subject to availability is well made in terms of framing an option going down the road.
So it would seem like we, as Brian mentioned, we should expand, especially the high school piece, a little more to cover. Again, we were close if people wanted to come in. I know we had quite a few for current seniors who, family situations, moved out of town. I think that number, we were at 20. Does 25 seem like a reasonable number to you, Mr. Brennigan? He's not listening to me.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Do we have to set a number, or is it something that we can also say subject to availability or the discussion? Because,
I don't think we have to
That's-
provide caps.
yeah, I feel like that might be appropriate. I think everyone's,
Do as a guiding. Yeah.
like, why said I don't know.
No, I think you can establish the, subject to availability leaves open that there could be a very large number. So who establishes what the availability is, as opposed to if you establish, like, I'm perfectly fine, as we talked about, which is establishing a number and then being open to change. And so we were open to change with the high school. We can do that, and that's well within the
As the year
purview.
progresses, we can change that. It's just not updated in the system.
Right.
Okay, in place. Okay.
And so that's the only reason I would say, I think it's reasonable, you know, if Mr. Brannigan came to us and said, I could handle X, and we've got that many, then we could have that
Okay.
discussion. So that's why usually places start out with numbers and have numbers assigned to it. Again, not necessarily grade-wise, but high school-wise and middle school-wise, and then expand from there. So does 30 seem reasonable to you, Mr. Brannigan?
We feel the 20 with these, and I think if you have the 5 or 10 more, it wouldn't make a difference.
Okay. And that, clearly, that's a number you could handle at the school without adversely affecting any of the students? Okay.
So we would go 30 at the high school, maintain the 5, 5, and 5 currently in the 6th, 7th, and 8th?
Either that, or I would just do what we did at the high school, is just establish a number for the middle school.
Yeah.
I'd say
Yeah.
15 at the middle school and 20, 30 at the high school?
Or we do 20, 30, so it's an even fit. I'm just saying, whatever this committee decides. I'd just say I would prefer that we do the same thing for both schools, which is if we're gonna,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's, you know, I don't have a,
I think that's reasonable.
Okay, we have the numbers here available.
Yes.
Okay, so we do have the. Okay. if we have the availability in both our facilities, then it doesn't hurt us to open it up, and we could take a vote tonight and get that rolling.
Certainly where it came through in a very convenient way or a very useful way this year is to take that school choice money and employ teachers with that money, additional teachers or additional staff that we've been able to supplement the school district with that. So, school choice can be a real positive if it's handled properly, and I think this is I certainly would recommend along the lines of exactly where you're going with this.
Take a vote out of order on action items on this? I would move that we vote to open our school choice for the school year 18-19 at 30 for the middle school and 30 for the high school at this time.
Discussion. As we mentioned, at our next meeting, we'll bring up how we could handle siblings, if we can handle them separately, or if we have to go in another way. I think that's a perfect to try to find out, and we'll put it on next week's agenda to make sure that piece is answered. Any other questions? Anybody have any comments from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Lynch.
Excellent. We will go back up to one of my report, which includes budget highlights, and number 2 is the FY16 end-of-year report compliance review. And for both of these items, I would feature Mrs. Kathy Piatelli, our Director of Finance and Business for the school system. Mrs. Piatelli.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. In your packet was a quarterly report of our budget highlights, and we're pretty much on track. We've spent 64% of our budget, which is customary. We did that last year. This year, our salaries will be right at where they're budgeted, or will be over by a little bit. We generally have extra money in the salary lines, but we don't, and we knew we wouldn't, so we've been very cautious about supplies. All the principals did all their ordering at the very beginning of the year, and they had whatever they needed. So now any PO that comes in now is like an emergency or something that can't be ordered until now, as like all the graduation supplies and butterflies for the kindergarten. So everything else has pretty much they have what they need, and it's been on hold. Our utilities are right where they have been budgeted for, so there won't be any extra funding there. Our special ed tuitions, as has happened every year is over. We have a lot of movement during the year, different placements, but we do have some extra money within our agricultural tuition line that will help offset the spending there. So my hope is that once we pay our last winter heating bill, which should be this last one, there might be a little bit of money left in those lines where we might be able to prepay a little bit of next year's special ed tuition. So that is what our hope is. Transportation, we were able to make that move at town meeting Monday, transferred $10,000 into the homeless because that account has been pretty active, and $70,000 into our special ed tuition and our operating budget. That's something we've done over the last couple of years, but we have to fund the transportation account because we never know if we're going to have more kids that we need to transport out. I mean, our home to school is set, but it's the special ed that whoever, needs to be transported, we have to do that. So we've been fortunate the last couple of years that we had the extra funding that we could transfer into our operating budget, so that has worked out well. Food service is doing very well with their lunch money, and they're going to probably be updating their point of service computers probably over the summer. The athletic revolving account is always very busy, and they'll be looking to MASBA for a little bit of help towards the end of the year. We have several revolving accounts, and you have their balances and what they're used for, from facility rental, community evening school, gifts and donations, driver's ed. We still have the funds in that account because we're responsible for the students. Once they sign up, they have 2 years to finish their program. And students that were in transition and driving, They got a couple from us, they paid us, and then we moved over to Martin. So as they take their lessons at the Martin School, we pay for those lessons. So that money still has an open account. And then I also gave you a 3-year summary of grants, the dollar amounts over the last 3 years, and a little description about what it's used for. And on the last page, every year it's gone down quite a bit. Some new grants have come, they'll come for 1 year and then they'll go away. Our big staple grants, Title I, the IDEA 240, supplemental services, and teacher quality, those are our big grants that we always depend on, because out of those, we pay, 19 positions, like $1 million. So we're really hopeful that they come back next year to us, too. So that's the 3 parts of our budget and our funding sources. So if anyone has any questions?
Kathy, I want to thank you. I mean, you make our lives very easy. I think you try to put things that are easy to understand and are more than willing to go over each and every piece with us, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you for that.
Pat on the back.
Thank you. My next piece of information is every year, at the end of the year, we have to do an end-of-the-year report for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Line by line, we have to put in what we've spent it on, and then it gets submitted up to DESE, and then by March 31st, it has to be audited by an independent auditing company, compliance review. And that was done, and we have a finding, which we were expecting, and it is because the school and the town don't have a written formal agreement about how to allocate the indirects. And the indirects are money the town pays on our behalf for our health insurance, or they plow all of the school buildings. And they do it, they tell us pretty much, what it is. We also track our own health insurance, but we don't have a written agreement. So Mr. Lynch and I have met a couple of times with Mr. Nunes and Mrs. McDonald, the town treasurer, and we have a draft, sent it to the auditors, and by the time this comes around next year, it should be signed.
And this really affects our foundation budget more than anything else, correct? Is there
Well, the
things outside?
indirects do, yes. And just, so that we know what they're reporting on our behalf, and that we understand what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Yes.
Your X report, which is produced annually by the town manager, really pretty much produces it, and with the town treasurer, which is available publicly. And I've gone through that many times for other budgets, including trash, which was one of my mainstays of always at town meetings until they made an enterprise account. But they do that for all the different enterprise accounts, including G&E as well as us. And it is an interesting report to look at as to what charges and how they go back and forth. It's a nice report to look at. But what the recommendation here is that we kind of solidify those items, so that we know that all of a sudden we're going to have something new come in and drop on us that's going to hit us for $20,000. Okay. It's not a bad idea. We're fortunate. I think we have a very good working relationship with our general government. Very good. So I think it hasn't been an issue, but.
I think it's a requirement in the audit compliance review, a box that the auditors have to check off. And there are some communities who don't have a good relationship, and that's why, so that everyone's on the same playing field.
Other questions for Kathy? Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kath. Now we move on to the athletic director position update. And I would remind you that the committee consists of Chairman Rich Young, Mr. Paul Brannigan, Pat Kingman, phys ed teacher and coach, Karen Marshall-Enos, and Pat Sclafani, and myself. We had 115 applicants for the position in a 2-week window. We were able to screen the entire 115 through a resume and a cover letter review, and have narrowed it down to 9. And next week, over a 2-day period, we will interview those 9 and then come up with hopefully a finalist, if not finalists, for perhaps a second round but if we have a clear candidate, then we'd just end at the 1 round. But that is our plan next week to hopefully come forward with a candidate to myself so that we can announce it then and move that name forward. So it was fun today as a group to go through a couple hours of these folks that are really interested in moving to Middleborough, some of them, and in reorganizing their lives to move from perhaps Ireland and North Dakota and places from all over the country. We had interest from everywhere, but I would say that probably 80% of the interest was within 50 miles, and probably, I would say, maybe 25 or 30% of the interest was within 20 miles. So we had some really good interest, and the ages varied from some people young and some people who had a lot of experience in their lives. So we were pleased with the field, and pleased with our candidates moving forward. I don't know if Mr. Chairman Young has any comments on that?
I just want to say that what I was pleased most with is a lot of the candidates have either served as an athletic director in the past or are currently assistant athletic directors in other districts. So they all have understanding of the job and what it requires. Many of the candidates that we chose had prior teaching experience, in addition to, being coaches and being part of the athletic family of a school. They taught in the school. And we had a couple of local candidates too, which is always really nice to see. And several of them moved forward. And so it was a great mix, as the superintendent said, from local to around us. Some of the faraway candidates didn't make it. Yes.
This presentation, we talked about it at our last meeting, and when you talk about people from around the world, around the country, I guess used to be a writer for the Boston Herald by the name of Howie Carr, who used to always complain that no one did a worldwide search. They always kind of searched in their family tree. I guess you could say this was a full worldwide search with far-reaching across the oceans, et cetera. So,
School Spring is a national and international database where really anyone can apply from anywhere, and it really, really opens it up. And it opens it up to 115 candidates. If we had advertised in, say, the Boston Globe or the Herald, it would have cost more money, and it probably would have gotten us fewer candidates. But hopefully we have the right candidate in that group somewhere. And that's what we need. Ultimately, that's what we want. It's an important position, as you know, and handled very well by Mike Perry, the current athletic director. Other questions? Okay, just to report on town meeting, I'm happy to report and proud and thankful for the people of the Middleborough who supported the school budget the other night. We had a quorum at the town meeting. Initially, it looked like we might not, but it was just, I think, from people parking, and eventually we crawled up almost to 200, I believe, at one point. But our school items went through. Our capital expenditure costs projected went through, including a boiler here at our school, at the Nichols Middle School. So we also had a sped van go through in the capital planning, but I'm thankful to the school committee members who could be there, and also thankful for Mrs. Piatelli for sitting in the audience the entire time, which was great, along with Mr. Hutchinson, our facilities director. So very positive and very thankful to the community of Middleborough for supporting the Middleborough Public Schools. Okay. And then MCAS updates. I did ask for updates from the principals, and we're at the point where we're going to wrap up. The ELA is wrapped up at the complex area, and the Nichols Middle School is almost wrapped up, but now we move to the math at the complex area, which will conclude in May. So that moves on to May, and I think makeups will be done by the conclusion of the month of May, and we'll be all wrapped up. But this MCAS, which used to be a couple windows, one in March and one in May, of about a week, and another week, has now gone on to about an 8-week process, which can be disruptive to a school, but we have administrators who have worked hard and school people who have worked hard, including teachers and ESPs, to make sure it's as little, it's as the least disturbing as possible to the school day, and that's an important piece too, because it is an assessment, and we get it, but it shouldn't rule the day. And what every day is, every classroom, every day, as we have up on the wall there, it's important that we continue on with our educational program. So, yes.
Just to have a brief comment on that, I typically try to leave personal anecdotal comments at home. This is a business discussion, so my N is really small, but I do have students in the district, in the schools who are participating, or a student in MCAS. And I have to just give credit to the building and the administrators, at least from my experience. And again, I typically don't share this, but I've noticed it really hasn't disrupted the flow of the day. It's kind of been an ancillary discussion at home at night on the days that my child has participated in the MCAS. And this is not a commentary on whether or not I agree with standardized testing, but what it is a comment on the fact that the building administrators and teachers have all done such a wonderful job with a brand-new test to get the students ready. And it really, in my perspective, again, my N is small, has really not affected my child's learning or time on learning or the flow of the day. So I just want to thank them all for that. It's probably not an easy lift to get that done and set the tone for the students like that, but I'm seeing that. So thank you.
It's a credit to our people. There's no doubt about it. Ms. Franco, I agree. And then we on to MSBA updates.
For the Middleborough High School update, I just want to make sure everyone understands that the bulk of the work of the working group and the building committee has been in preparation for May 12th. That's the day we defend our proposal before the MSBA. And so the vast majority of work, if we get approved, they would move us into schematic design, and we would begin the summer-long process of putting together every piece and nook and cranny of what a high school would look like and how much that would cost and exactly where things would go and pieces like that. So I know the superintendent has been working very hard, as has Mr. Brannigan. Mr. Brannigan constantly gets comments from the MSBA that he has to address, and we appreciate that. So, Mr. Lynch, did you want to say anything?
I would just add that we are right now in what's called, right the smack dab in the middle of what's called the Module 3 Flexibility Study Preferred Schematic Report. And we are currently reviewing comments and basically answering them back. They look through the entire 500-page brochure, and then they point out questions or issues they might have or areas that they feel that we've done well at, and they'll indicate that we don't have to respond to those. That response has been prepared, is going to be submitted tomorrow. And then on May 12th, which was originally May 10th, but they rescheduled us for the 12th, we go in and defend, and hopefully our project will be accepted moving forward from there. So the MSBA had some very nice things to say about us. They've been in contact with us. The folks that actually work for the MSBA have had phone conferences with us. We had one as recently as Monday for about a couple hours there, and we spoke with them, and they're very happy with the way things are going and the way things have been prepared. So we'll see how it goes. But that's the Module 3 Feasibility Study Preferred Schematic Report, which will be submitted tomorrow. Thank you.
And then the Memorial Early Childhood Center?
Community forum?
We had a community forum yesterday, I should say, at the Council on Aging. There was a small number of people, but it was well-attended, and we appreciate those who came. And it was our opportunity to meet with people during the daytime. A lot of the presentations we've done have been at night, and so that may not be when people can meet with us, so we wanted to make sure we did at least one daytime presentation. So to afford the option of people who work at night especially, or have childcare at night that they can't get out of. So we did that, and we had a nice little crowd. It was a little amongst, but we knew that going in, it would be.
Yeah, we had a working group meeting after that, and followed by a full meeting of the school committee, the school building committee, excuse me. Last evening.
Yes.
One of the pieces that came up just recently with the building project is if anyone goes to the website mhsbuildingproject.com, that's mhsbuildingproject.com, the tabs have across the top there's one tab, 3 tabs in called presentations, which actually there are the presentations that were presented to the public in there, and it's very easy to click on it. It's they're PDFs, and that's all available, as well as meeting minutes and the options analysis. So if you go to mhsbuildingproject.com, you can see pretty much all that information that we've been talking about for the last 2 years, and it's available. Thank you.
But the only other thing that I wanted to add too, that we should add is, as people know, town meeting approved a group of us that will meet with the Archdiocese of Boston and begin formal discussions about the 8.9 acres off of Wood Street that abuts the high school property. So we will begin with that, and I believe if the plan holds out, we will be meeting with the Board of Selectmen by the end of May to address what our offer will be and going forward from there.
But that, again, would be a parcel that we only need a small piece of,
Right.
that would be available to the town beyond that for really anything, maybe whether it be athletic fields for the park, or the location of a possibly future DPW garage, or whatever. We just need an easement. We needed an easement, and they were more interested in selling the parcel than providing us with an easement through the parcel. So that's where we're at with that piece right now. And the members on that negotiating committee include the chair, myself, the town manager, the member of the selectmen, I think it's going to be Alan Frawley. 2 members of the selectmen, thank you.
And the school building committee chair was Rob.
Rob DeRoche, of course.
About Memorial Early Childhood Center?
The MEC, we're at the point where we're going to repoint the mortar on the chimney, and we are going to address the flashing issue at the top of the cupola. If we go back this week to the amounts of rain that we did have, just about 2 inches in Middleborough, there wasn't a drop. We did not have a leak whatsoever. So what we've discovered is that when the wind gets over 40 miles an hour is when we're and the wind and the rain, that's when we're having this issue. So the engineering folks at the roof level feel that it is a result of moisture seeping through the mortar and over and above a flash that's about 3 feet high on the cupola. So we're going to address both those issues, and hopefully we'll have a very positive report next time. Thank you.
Any questions about MSBA at all? Seeing that, I'm going to move on to just a couple of school committee updates. The superintendent and I attended Mass Association of School Committees Day on the Hill on Tuesday. It was very informative. We met with several legislators there from the education committees, and then we were able to have a one-on-one with our state rep, Tom Coulter, and then right after that, the House went into session, so we couldn't have a conversation with anybody else. So I thought it was a very productive meeting, and if, Mr. Lynch, you want to add anything to it, you feel free.
No, I enjoyed visiting the Hill, and we couldn't meet with Representative Orrell or Representative Gifford, unfortunately, because they went right into session. We sat in the gallery, and we saw them working. So they were in attendance, and they were voting, so. Tried to wave to them, but they weren't looking up.
So that was, it was another great presentation put on by Mass Association of School Committees, and we enjoyed it. Just a reminder about the Charting the Course at Southeast Regional on May 20th. That's the closest to us, I believe. We will still be having a workshop, as we talked about before. I'm going to send out dates to people, but I'll probably keep it on a Thursday night, because that's the night we're used to meeting, so it probably makes more sense to do it then. And then, I just wanted to add one public record update that I found out, and I wanted to let people know about, which is, it came up through when I had a conversation with somebody. When a public record request is made, it moves over to the town website. So it's listed there, so anyone can see that particular piece if people want to take a look at it and see what requests were made and what kind of requests are made. They're there. We had talked greatly before about the public records officer that we have and named Ann our public records officer, and there was some question about what happens to those requests and how do those requests get handled. But this is essentially a two-step process. One is that they handle them, it's sent over to town, because Allison Ferreira is essentially in charge of all the town pieces. And then she makes sure that everything's done, and then it gets posted online. So I just wanted people to know that, and you can see the status as it continues. So I don't want to, yes?
You actually see the information that was there, because once that packet is put together, I've requested information and somebody else requested the same information, then she doesn't have to do it again. It's already there. So it's kind of an interesting piece, the way they do that.
I don't have anything else under any other business aside from one left on action item. Am I missing anything?
There'll be one more after that.
Okay, no problem. Yes.
Move that we approve the following warrants. Warrant number 396, 406, and 419 as presented tonight.
Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Mr. Chair. Yes.
I would move that we approve the Mary K. Good Elementary School Roger Williams Zoo June 8th field trip. It's an out-of-state field trip. It's on the back of our agenda under item E, but I'm sorry, that was the only one that was out-of-state that I saw, so. And it wasn't overnight.
No problem. So, motion on the table. Do I hear a second?
Second.
For discussion. This is, our policy is that we approve any out-of-state field trip. This is an annual field trip that Mary Kay Good goes on. And so this is a usual course of business. Any further comment or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Did I miss anything else? Mr. Giovanni? No, I just wanted to make sure.
Nice being on your toes, Brian.
Anyone have any questions or thoughts? Yeah, oh, please do.
I think I received an email from MASC, Mass Association of School Committees. It was an interesting item in here, key issues in special education, the road to turning 22 on May 16th, up in Marlborough. So there are a couple of things that were in there, but that was the one that I thought was interesting that I'm going to try to take a look at, and I would love to be able to get up there. I just hopefully it'll fit my schedule. But that just seemed like an interesting one. I'd love to hear more. So I love getting MASC. It's crazy. They don't hit us too much, so that it's not too much. So I read everything they send me. Thank you.
Anything else? Chair will accept a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second? Just so everyone knows, before I take the vote, we do have a meeting next week. Today our meeting was moved out of order to cover for school vacation, and so we're back on track on May 4th. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I'm wondering if for next week we might consider moving the third or the second May date to the last week in May, possibly that Thursday evening, 25th, I believe, so that we might be able to schedule a review of all our school improvement plans. And at that point, I've been told by the principals they will all be prepared and ready to go.
If we were to do that, Mr. Chair, maybe if we're going to do all the school improvement plans in one night, would we add a third night to May? I just food for thought. Not to add I just don't want to pack too much into one night.
Either that or if we introduce them on that night and vote on them at the following.
I would really try to make. If we were doing the three improvement plans, it would be a light night. Right, we're meeting next week. Next week about
Sure.
moving it or not.
Just wanted to throw that out there.
So the motion on the floor is to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. So yeah, that makes sense. We can. Thank you, everybody.